Hello, and welcome to Virtual Investor Conferences. My name is Cecilia, and on behalf of OTC Markets, we're very pleased you've joined us for our next live presentation from Group 11 Resources. Please note, you can submit questions in the box to the left of the slides. You can also view company's availability for one-on-one meetings through the Schedule Meetings tab found on the conference platform. At this point, I'm very pleased to welcome Bart Jaworski, CEO and Director of Group 11 Resources, which trades on the OTC markets under the symbol GRLVF and on the TSXV under the symbol ZNG. Welcome, Bart.
Thank you, Cecilia. Thanks so much for having me, and great to be here. And thanks to everyone out there for joining us. Good afternoon. My name is Bart Jaworski. Like Cecilia said, I'm the CEO and co-founder of the company. We started this company in 2015. By background, I'm a geologist and ex-equity mining analyst for background. So I'll just launch into the meeting here. Just note I will be saying some forward-looking statements, and I'll start off with vision. When we started this company back in 2015, 8 years ago now, our vision was to find the next big zinc deposit in the country, a deposit that was large enough and high grade enough to make it to be a mine at some stage. Ireland is renowned for its Irish style zinc deposits, very rich for zinc. And that was a dream, a hope, and an aspiration for us. And I'm very happy to say that 8 years later, fast forward to now, we find ourselves in the fortunate position where we have 12 holes into a brand new discovery within Ireland. So we've partially realized this vision, and I'm very excited to share with you our latest developments. But first, I guess, let's get into the investment highlights. And the first, I'll just basically take these one by one, just to make it nice and easy. So first off, let's talk about macro. So the zinc price, we're very constructive on the price of zinc, very, very bullish over the medium to long term on the price of zinc, not only because of infrastructure and China and the US having to really press the gas pedal on infrastructure spending, which means steel, which means zinc required to galvanize it, to obviously rust proof it. But outside of that's about 60% of the demand. But outside of that, there's a nascent technologies coming on under the banner of this global energy transition. And that comes in three forms. That's the batteries, the wind, and the solar. And just to give you an idea of the amount of zinc battery companies out there right now, here's a slide from the Zinc Battery Initiative. There's about 18 companies right now associated with building zinc battery technologies. Zinc battery technologies are great for grid power storage. They seem to be superior to lithium in that end demand part of the business, as opposed to EVs, which are obviously lithium territory. But in terms of grid power storage, it seems like the zinc chemistry is well suited for it. The price points are well suited for it. The safety features are very conducive to that end demand. So very much watch this space. I think it's going to be growing quite quickly over the next few years. Next is the wind. You know, the world is going from onshore to offshore. When you're out at sea conditions, it's quite corrosive. You need 10 times the amount of zinc to galvanize your blades out there. So that's another growing sector. And then lastly, solar. Obviously, we're building a lot of solar farms out there. All those solar panels need to be framed and held up, and obviously all those frames are going to be steel covered with galvanization with zinc coating. So that's another growth factor as well. Now, Ireland is a great place to be. 60 years of modern mining history in the country. 6 mines have opened up there in that time frame. It's world renowned for its zinc deposits, and I will tell you a lot more about that in the next few slides. We have a great team. Our board is steeped with experience in terms of capital markets, made discoveries before, deep bench strength on legal and accounting. On the shareholder side, I think a lot of you might be surprised that Glencore is a 21% shareholder of Group 11 and has a seat on our board. So just note that that is indeed the case. Our number 2 shareholder is Michael Gentile from Montreal. He owns 16.5%, 19.9% on a partially diluted basis. We have management owning about 4%, a lot of high net worth individuals as well in the mix that have been supporters for basically since inception of the company, which we're very grateful for. Now, the reason I'm here is to tell the world about the Ballywire discovery. This is a new, exciting discovery, and it's the most significant discovery in Ireland over the last 10 years. The most exciting discovery in Ireland over the last 10 years. Just bears repeating. It's a very interesting situation where we got here. We think it's very significant, and I'm going to tell you a lot more about it in the next few slides. I would be remiss, however, if I didn't also mention we have a big second target just in the back pocket. It's called Carrickittle West, and I'll touch on that very quickly at the very end. But just note it is there as well. Valuation anchor. So if you're an investor looking at mining companies to invest in, it is comforting to know that Group 11 has some valuation anchors in by way of deposits already 43101. They're deposits that we have in Ireland, two of them, Stone Park and Ballinallack. They're each about 5 million tons, varying in grade from 9% to about 11%. And what's nice about that is that gives you a bit meat on the bone. So those are the valuation anchors. Okay, and then we have a very busy Q4 coming up. So stay tuned for that. A lot of work is being done on the Ballywire discovery right now, and we will have that news flow in the fourth quarter. And the next slide is not wanting to come up, but I will keep pressing the next button until it does. There we go. There's the investment highlights once again for all in one spot, and I'll refer to this a little later on. Oh, now it's jumping back to the previous slide. Bear with me here with slight technical difficulties, I guess. I'm just going to hit the next button again. Okay, let's move on here. Now, why Ireland? Well, let's first talk about Ireland in terms of the deposits that are here. So the Tara deposit, for example, one of the largest deposits of zinc in the world. It's 100 million tons of 10% zinc and lead. Phenomenal discovery back in the 70s, and a new discovery in 2012, which now it's called Tara Deeps. It's about 30 million tons of 9%. So it really, really is world class over here. Let's talk about Galmoy, another deposit that was put into production. Let's talk about Lachine, another zinc deposit that was put into production. Silver mines over here where my cursor was put into production. Tina was the first zinc mine put into production here. Gordrum was an open pit copper mine that was put into production. And then there's the Palace Green deposit itself, which is not yet in production, but it is one of the largest undeveloped deposits, zinc deposits in the world. And it sits right here. So I hope I'm painting the picture. There's a lot of deposits here, and Ireland is a small country, and the Irish ore field is smaller than that. So that's why Ireland gets the distinction of being ranked number one in the world in terms of zinc found per square kilometer. So that's the first point to make. It's a very important point to make. Now, number two, very quickly, and this is more of an ESG component, but very important because majors care about this. We are poised in Ireland to have the greenest zinc in the world. And by greenest, I mean the lowest carbon footprint. And that reflects the fact that we have clean metallurgy in the country. Oh, this next slide ticker is not working for me. Clean metallurgy. And that reflects the fact that these are Mississippi Valley type deposits. They tend to be coarse and clean. They don't have a lot of nasties in them. Okay, so that's very important. Next is we're infrastructure rich. So there's roads, power, year-round tidewater, as you can imagine. Proximity to European smelters, which is an obvious point. And what might be surprising for some of you is the wind power component. So right now, Ireland is 30% wind power. And the plan is by the government by 2030, it'll be a 100% wind power with the offshore build off the East Coast. So that's a very important point to make. 5 gigawatts, fixed turbines, shallow sea, should be off the shelf technology, all slated to be done by 2030. And then the West Coast, another 10 years from that, I think we're expecting these are going to be floating turbines, but 10 times the wind capacity there. So I think Ireland will be awash with wind power over the next few decades. and that bodes well for green power, powering up our mines and industry in here. So all that put together is a very interesting point to make. Now, mining history in Ireland. So very important. I stated 6 mines over the last 60 years. The majors that are here are Boliden, Glencore, Teck, and South 32. And if you follow the Fraser Institute, Ireland is #1 for Policy Perception Index, which reflects the mining code in the country is top notch versus all the other 60 to 90 jurisdictions out there in the world that the Fraser Institute ranks. So all this put together means basically reduced risk for the investor. If you're comparing us against other mining jurisdictions, maybe some of those other assets are remote. Maybe they're in geopolitically tough areas. Maybe they have metallurgical issues. I think all those points are very important to make. So let's just fly into the flagship asset now, which is our Stone Park PG West project area in the Limerick area of Southwest Ireland. You can see the yellow box. I'm just going to zoom in on that now. And you get this picture. The first point I'll make is that you have Glencore and South 32 as neighbors. So everything in blue there is Glencore's exploration properties. The yellow is South 32's exploration ground. Over here you have 100% owned ground by Group 11. These are exploration licenses that under the banner of PG West project. 100% owned by us. And in the center you have 76% owned Stone Park project in the center. Okay, so that just gives you the lay of the land. Let's just talk about now the Palace Green corridor and where the Ballywire deposit sits within it. So it's the Palace Green corridor meeting and intersecting with the Rathdowney Trend. So the Palace Green corridor starts out with the Palace Green deposit, which is 45 million tons of 8.4%. So again, like I mentioned before, one of the biggest undeveloped zinc deposits in the world, plus a string of other prospects along here, and that forms this yellow line here, most largely north-south. And coming off here from Lachine and Galmoy, which are just off the page, you have the famous Rathdowney Trend. So that basically comes across in this direction. And basically where those two intersect is where the Ballywire project is located. So let's now look into that yellow box and see what the Ballywire project is all about, or the prospect is all about. So what you're seeing here is actually a snapshot, not of today, but we're doing a bit of time travel here and going back to 1997 as it was around that time. And there was a hole that was drilled here that was mineralized. Unfortunately, they followed it in the wrong direction, and the markets were bad. If you remember, 1997 was the Bre-X nuclear winter. Not a lot of mining investment happening in those days, so not much happened until 3 years later. You had another drill hole, and this one actually got some really interesting copper and silver numbers, some really high copper silver numbers, albeit over narrow widths. Quite interesting, though. So a few more years passed, another hole was drilled. This time, sort of medium mineralization, nothing really to shout about. And again, the great financial crisis around that time. So this ground became open. We staked it 8 years later in 2016. And then 3 years after that, we felt comfortable. We had done enough homework to drill our first hole. And we drilled this guy here in May 2019. And we got pretty close to fire, but it was still, 2 meters of 6%, not quite fire. Pretty good smoke, though. So 2 more years after that, we finally hit our significant mineralization. So this was in September 2021. We hit 3 meters of 12.5% and 48 grams per ton silver. So it was a really, really good hit, and we felt, okay, this could be quite interesting. So we decided to step out 300 to 400 meters in each direction. And on the very fourth hole, as it happens, that ended up being our discovery hole. So in September 22, we announced our discovery hole. We intersected 66 meters of mineralization, and within that was 10 meters of 10% zinc and lead and 100 grams silver. And within that, even narrower, higher grades of, you can see here, 2 meters of 41% zinc and lead and 385 grams per ton silver. So really, really interesting mineralization here. So obviously we're going to follow that up, and every drill hole, by the way, that we did follow up ended up hitting mineralization. The highlight of those holes was the next step out, which was another 60-meter step out, and that intersected another 10 meters of 9%, 46 grams per ton. So we were on a roll, and of course we're going to keep on drilling. So we kept up pushing towards the east. This time another 60, or I call it an 80-meter step out this time, and this time we got 18 meters at 10% with some phenomenal silver numbers: 257 grams per ton. Within that, we had up to 990 grams per ton silver, both in the wall sortion and underneath. I'll show you a cross section of that in a second. And interestingly, the copper started to come up as well. So all of a sudden, we're starting to get some momentum here. So where does that leave us in terms of dimensions? So right now we're looking at 550 meters of strike length in terms of what we've drilled. If you look at it the other direction, there's 510 meters down dip extent. The original section is 900 meters of mineralization. So these are large step outs on the original section. Every one of those holes hit mineralization. And of course, over here, we have this hole from 1997, 1 kilometer away. And all this area here is very shallow. So it's going to be very easy for us to come back here and try to connect the dots when the time is right. Perhaps most importantly is that it's open for 3 kilometers to the east. So absolutely no drilling done for 3 kilometers. And in fact, the hole that is drilled here historically 3 kilometers away is still mineralized. It has 5 meters of 1.6% in it. So we know the system, if it is all connected as one system, is still alive all the way over here. It bodes well for the intervening area. So what does it look like from the side? What's the shape of this thing? Is it all over the place, or is it all basically sitting at one unit, one horizon? Well, the good news is that it is sitting in one unit, all at the base of the wall sortion limestone. The wall sortion limestone is typically where Irish zinc deposits reside. It's the green unit here, and so at the base of that is where we typically see zinc deposits in Ireland. The red are the massive sulfide and the high grade zones. The yellow are the medium grade zones, and you can see that very consistently every drill hole we drill, and these are fairly large step outs, 50 to 100 meter step outs. We're hitting every time, so that bodes really well. It's clearly a big system. This is 510 meters down dip extent over here, and the main points are there's continuity and predictability here. Now let's move from that section and see what it looks like 500 meters over, and look at that from the side. And you can see it's the very same story, all sitting at the very bottom of the wall sortion limestone, very predictable, and exactly where it should be. So let's go from that section and see what's happening at the newest section where we just released the results 4 weeks ago, and look at that from the side. And again, what that looks like is exactly the same thing. We're seeing mineralization at the base of the wall sortion limestone. Here, we were lucky enough to hit the feeder structure, the feeder zone, what we interpret to be the feeder structure, 18 meters of 10% here with some really stellar silver grades and copper grades, 257 silver and 0.22 copper. And above that, more flat-lying mineralization, about 8 meters of 6% zinc and lead and 86 grams per ton plus copper. And within that, a 4 meter higher grade zone of almost 9% zinc and lead with 150 grams per ton silver and 0.3 copper. So nothing to scoff at there. Notice these two other holes that we drilled to the north and to the south, up and down dip, are yet to be released. We have completed those. Assays are pending. So that's part of the news flow that we'll have in the fourth quarter that I mentioned. Okay, where are we now here? All right, so what is the big picture here? And this is where things get really interesting in my view. So if we put a box around all the mineralization that we've intersected so far and zoom out, let's zoom out and see what this looks like. You can see those boxes here and here. And basically, the search area that we have is 6 by 2 kilometers. For our American friends, 3.7 miles by 1.2 miles in area. And how we define this basically is these gravity high anomalies. So the contours and the colors here depict a gravity anomaly or a gravity survey, and the anomalies A, B, C, and D are very interesting because they occur within the wall sortion limestone. The wall sortion limestone should not have gravity anomalies in them unless A, they're mineralized and there's massive sulfides in them, or perhaps there's more iron and magnesium in parts of the limestone. That could also be an explanation, or perhaps there's some topographical aspects going on underneath the surface in terms of underneath the till. So those all could be in the realm of possibilities as to why those anomalies are there. Obviously, we're hoping that these gravity anomalies are telling us there's more mineralization to be found here. But we won't know that until we continue to drill and further step out. So I'm just going to show you in terms of the most immediate work we're doing right now. We're drilling in this area over towards anomaly C that I've whited out here, and that's really where we've got 2 drill rigs right now working away, and we're progressing towards the east towards that anomaly. Okay, and then just to make the last point on Ballywire, and that's how does it compare to Lachine? Lachine is a very good example because it was a very profitable zinc mine. It just went, it just was mined out in 2015, just recently closed down. Was very good from an ESG perspective in terms of, how it was run and closed down and everything else. The mine itself was about 20 million, the tonnage there was about 20 million tons, running, call it 15%, just as a ballpark estimate. And the size of it was, I've scaled it here to the exact same scale as the underlying map. So the scales are identical. And obviously, Lachine is 50 kilometers over uptrend, but I've put it here for comparability. And you can see that in terms of space, we can fit 1, 2, 3, maybe even 4 Lachines in the search area that we're focusing in on. So I think we have hopefully a good chance to hopefully find at least one of these things in where we're looking. So that wraps it up on Ballywire. I think in summary, the most exciting thing that's happened in Irish mineral exploration for the last 10 years. We're certainly excited. The footprint is huge. It's a very large footprint in terms of what we found so far, and the 6x2 kilometer search area is certainly something we could find. We can really move the needle on. So fingers crossed, the drills are turning, and we'll see how it goes. Let's move very quickly then to our second big target, which is, as I mentioned, hopefully 1 hole away from discovery, but not there yet. I would be remiss if I didn't mention it. So we're back to this regional picture. Remember, we're just talking about Ballywire, which is the yellow box. We're now going to move over here to the yellow box around the Palisgreen deposit. So I'm going to zoom in on that. And you can see all the red here is the outline of the Palisgreen deposit as it was back in 2015, based on an academic paper that was put out around that time. As well as our Stone Park deposit over here in red. The blue line depicts the boundary between Glencore ground to the north and Group 11 Arkle ground to the south. And you can see that as of 4 weeks ago, a new paper was just published, and it basically has a revised outline of the Palisgreen deposit here. And you can see that the shape has changed somewhat, but interestingly, more mineralization has been found to the south of where it was previously, about 1 kilometer south or 0.6 miles south, and now it's within about 1 kilometer of our border. And we know that the mineralization trend is veering towards the south. So if we zoom out again, and let's see, will that do it? Yeah. Bear with me here while I move the slides over. So let's zoom out. That's the trend, basically. That dotted line is the Palisgreen corridor. And our recent drilling, we know we have mineralization to the south. Our most recent drilling has shown pyritic breccia bodies within the Wall-Sortian limestone, exactly what we're seeing up north. And most importantly, we found a big fault on the very south side here, the biggest fault known in the entire region of the Limerick volcanic complex here. So our idea, our exploration thesis, is that this area in particular is of very high importance. And so what we'd like to do is drill, because this could be where the feeder structure is, perhaps feeding the entire camp, or at least that's the thesis. It's a very interesting project. There's some symmetry going on here with the volcanic complex. You can see that's a round, almost an oval shaped feature. And there's certainly some symmetries going on between the north and the south. So if it's happening on the north, we certainly see indications and evidence that there's something also happening on the south side, and it could be higher grade and maybe with silver and copper. There's no silver and copper in these deposits over here. Certainly, Carrickittle has a lot of silver and copper in it, so perhaps this is the hotter side. Again, that remains to be seen. So I'm just going to wrap up now. In terms of the upcoming catalysts, the 2 key drivers for us is clearly Ballywire. We have a follow-up drill program here, 2 rigs going as we speak. We have some geophysical results coming up some germanium assays that we'll be putting out as well. Stay tuned for those. And then obviously this deep target, Karakittle West deep target, that's going to be a 700 to a kilometer plus deep hole. We'll drill that when the time is right. It's pending priorities at Ballywire. We'll see how it goes, but it is there in the background, and investors should be keen on that as well. Very quickly before I open it up to questions, I just want to mention the team here. We have a great team. The board consists of 5 members. Dan McInnes, who's a geologist and longtime mining executive, ex-CEO, retired CEO of Mag Silver. Myself, again, geologist and mining analyst. Brendan Cahill is a lawyer. Alessandro Batelli, chartered accountant. Ken Klassen is a Canadian mining M&A lawyer. He was appointed by Glencore about a couple of years ago now. That's the board. On the management side, we have Janine Webb in Vancouver, David Furlong, who between him and myself, we're the co-founders of the company. So we're here since day one. And we have Mark Holdstock, who was responsible for the discovery of the SWEX portion of the Tara mine, or Navin mine as it's otherwise known. Very good guy to have along with us as well. Very quickly on the capital structure, you see the pie chart here of Glencore, Michael Gentile. I didn't mention, but Teck has a small sliver of ownership as well. Insiders are 4%, a lot of high net worth individuals that are close to the story that remain stalwart supporters of the company, which we're very thankful for as well. 175 million shares outstanding and $1.8 million cash as of the last reported quarter in June 30th. And with that, I'll conclude. I'll just basically, to pin it all down, we're constructive and positive on the outlook for zinc and zinc prices. We think Ireland is a great place to be. We have an excellent team. We have strong shareholders. We're very excited by the Ballywire discovery. It's also nice to have a nice target in the background as well with Karakittle West. We have valuation anchors there with 2 deposits in the back pocket, and we have a very busy Q4 that I think investors should be looking out for as upcoming catalysts. Okay, so that concludes my presentation. And at this stage, I will open it up to questions. So let's see, is there any questions? How did Glencore come to own a significant stake in Group 11? So that's one question asked. Thank you for that. Glencore came in 2019. Because we're next door neighbors, it's kind of an interesting, it's almost a special situation, if you will. I think Palace Green is a special situation because it's Glencore's only greenfield project globally. So it's interesting. Obviously, they probably see some potential there. I know that they continue to hold it for many years now. Continue to be active at Palace Green. They're doing great things at Palace Green, and so we were neighbors. I guess that's the main point. And it seemed to make sense to at least work together and realize potential synergies in the future. So in 2019, Glencore came in and invested pure equity in Topco. It's not an asset level deal or anything like that. It's all at the corporate level. And it's there as a news release, and you can look that up at any time. I hope that answers your question. And I know it's late in the day here. I'm not seeing any other questions here. So with that, thank you very much for hearing the presentation. If you have any questions whatsoever, I'm more than happy to hop on a call or a Teams call or email or what have you and answer any questions you may have. And hope everyone has a great day.